our two Superior Court judges, absolutely excellent men. And I am so honored to have them in the studio for West Hollywood, local channel 36 and beyond. So we have with us the wonderful Judge Craig J. Mitchell, and we also have with us the wonderful Judge David Surmeyer Cunningham III. And when I think of these two gentlemen, it just, I'm in awe of all the service that they have given to the community. So with that being said, Judge Mitchell, when I first saw you, and one of my favorite pet stories, you were actually on Channel 5, and you were running, and you had your men with you. So I expected all the men to be here tonight. There's no telling who's going to be with you when I meet you. And you look better than Rocky running down the street. Now, little did I know that the mission, when you run with the men, and I think you even have women.
Oh, we have a considerable number of women.
In the
right.
group, that you're running at 5:30 in the morning, right?
Correct.
Yes. That was very inspiring. I thought about it, and then I went back to bed, but I did think about it.
We do that 3 days a week, Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays.
Oh, my God.
Okay, 52 weeks out of the year.
Even when you do daylight savings, like today.
This morning was particularly difficult because it was really, 4:30 in the morning when we started out.
Oh,
right,
my God.
Right.
Now, you inspired me so much until I actually showed up at in Pasadena to do a run. And I made it out of the parking lot, okay? But when I saw them going up the hill, what I missed was that they are marathon runners. I missed marathon. I run with my girlfriends and walk with my girlfriends, but we walk up the hill and then we go to Starbucks. So when they started running and we ran out of the stadium's parking lot and they continued to run, Judge Cunningham, they started running up a hill. And I had to stop and think, and I thought, you know what? Even if I make it up that hill, somewhere somebody's going to have to pick me up and bring me down the hill. And that's going to be really embarrassing. So I just sort of let them run up the hill, and I kind of fell back and I went back to the car and called them later and said how wonderful it was to meet them. And my body was sore for 3 days. I mean, you guys are really awesome.
We ran that same hill this past Saturday. We will be running the LA Marathon in 2 weeks.
Oh, my God.
And so we did our final 20-mile run on Saturday. Okay, so, yeah. We had probably 35 runners out there this past weekend. Yes.
20 miles.
20 miles, and you got to put the miles in, because if you don't, 26.2 isn't the experience that you want.
Okay.
Okay? So when you get ready, you let me know.
Absolutely,
okay?
yes.
Challenge.
Oh, yes. Oh, my.
Ready.
Most definitely. Okay, so you're going to be running a marathon, as you always do. Not only that, you and your men and the women that you inspire, there was a movie made about you, and rightly so. It was very inspiring. You run in other countries.
We do. In fact, just a year ago, we took 44 of our runners from Skid Row to run in Jerusalem and in Jordan.
Wow.
Okay, and we go for 2 weeks. I'm not going to take them that distance without really exposing them to everything that particular venue has to offer. And it was just wonderful. I mean, we had Jews, we had Muslims, we had Christians, we had people who had no faith, but for them to be in Jerusalem and go to the holy sites, okay, and, to gain a sense of history and be able to connect visuals to what they had learned as children, okay, and we had a whole group that was baptized in the River Jordan.
Oh, my God.
Okay. Then we went to Petra, Jordan. And it was a magical moment. We arrived probably about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and the hotel we stayed at overlooked what they called the Valley of Moses, Wadi Musa. Okay, and the sun was going down and the beautiful colors, and many of our runners just took it all in, and they were in tears, literally crying. Just so cognizant of the fact that 6 months, a year before, they had been in the grips of addiction. And here they were, you know, partaking in just an incredible sight and experience. You know, it makes it easy. I start on Mondays and Thursdays. My day starts at 2:30 in the morning.
Wow.
Okay, and I've been doing this now for 8 years, and it's not hard to get up that early when I know how appreciative the folks that are in the Skid Row Running Club.
Wow.
Yeah, it is the most meaningful aspect of my life at this point.
Well, my mother is in the studio, thank God, with us tonight. And for the spiritual movement that your folks were experiencing, we call that the anointing.
Okay.
And but it's such a miracle on how far that they've come with you under your guidance and your leadership. Because, like I said, I tried. I mean, you inspired me. You inspired me so much. I was ready to get up and I was running. But to actually do it is an entirely different matter. It really is.
And in the Jerusalem Marathon, for example, anybody who's been to Jerusalem understands it is not a flat course. Okay, Jerusalem is full of hills. Okay, so it was somewhat of a daunting course for our members. This coming October, we're going to be taking about 50 to Guayaquil, Ecuador, to run the marathon there. And that trip will then include, we will spend a week in the Galapagos Islands, and they'll be learning about Charles Darwin and be diving with the wildlife and the sea life. And then we wrap up our trip by spending a few days in the Amazon.
Wow.
Okay, and you know, and what is so fun about these experiences is prior to this, you know, oh, we're going to Ecuador. And I hate to say it, but some of our members will say, "Where is that? Is that in Africa?" You know? No. Have you heard of Charles Darwin? Who? I mean, you really appreciate the gaps that a lot of people suffer from.
Absolutely.
And this is an opportunity to, you know, say, no, this is what the body of knowledge that you need to be comfortable with. And what better way to do it than to actually go there and experience it?
Well, the other thing that I find so fascinating about you is that, number one, when I went to the opening, the preview of the movie that they made about you, that your wife said the most expensive thing about you are, I guess, your running shoes, your tennis shoes.
Right.
You don't spend money on anything except running shoes. And of course, you know, the fundraisers that we do, that you do to help your men and the women run and get to Rome and Jerusalem and to all these other places. So with that being said, I never realized until I saw the movie, and this is kind of sad too, because I'm a happy girl, but I never realized that these people had any issues at all. I thought you guys were just a running club. And when I saw the movie, to see the gentleman that had overcome the addiction, there was one that he ended up going to the Arts Academy.
San Francisco Conservatory of Music, Ben Shirley. Right. And he is now composing full-time classical music for the film industry.
Oh my God.
Okay, an incredible success.
Yes.
Another woman featured in the movie, Rebecca Hayes, was a heroin addict for over 10 years. She is now a surgical nurse up in Seattle.
I remember that part.
Okay?
Yes.
I mean, and Brian, who was on the show earlier,
yes.
Brian came to us homeless, illiterate, He is now working for LA Tourism as their IT expert, full-time, well-paid job. I mean, these are the things that, the program that, is called a running club, but it's really
So
just
much
a
more.
mechanism to surround people with people who care about them, who have opportunities, who can direct them, who can guide them, who can mentor them. That's the real, crux of the program.
One of my,
Can I ask
oh,
a
go
question?
ahead.
Tell me about the film that you were in. I'm unfamiliar with it.
Mark and Gabby Hayes made a full-length documentary. It is being submitted to the Academy for consideration this next year. It's a full hour-and-a-half feature documentary that follows 5 of our runners and examines, how running and how participating in this group of people has helped them maintain their sobriety and achieve their life goals.
If you've seen the movie Free Solo recently,
Oh,
it sounds
yes.
similar to that. I had a chance to observe it.
Oh.
Those are very inspirational.
Well, that was a literal mountain to climb, okay?
Yes.
But
Literally.
figuratively, these folks have done the same. Okay,
Now, when you did the very first show, Mark and Gabby were here with you.
right.
And that was one of the contingencies that you mentioned to do the show. You said, I have to bring Mark and Gabby. These people actually, was she running with you? I know they traveled with you.
Oh, no, Gabby's a superb runner.
Yeah. I
Okay.
was like, just wow. I wanted to have you on the show, but I just couldn't keep up. So I'm glad that grace abounds in mercy. And the other thing, because it's a running club, but it's their salvation. One of the things that I do on the weekend consistently. Okay, I do it all week long. That's the truth. I listen to KKLA, and they talk about the rescue mission. And every time I hear about them, is that part of the same group that you work with?
The Union Rescue Mission, their sort of running group is Back on Your Feet. Okay? Interestingly, as things ebb and flow, Back on Your Feet has regrettably lost members recently. And so we are now pulling from Union Rescue Mission.
Okay.
And so Union Rescue is feeding into our program with great numbers.
Okay.
Okay? So, a vacuum that was sort of existed, it's been wonderful to have them with us now as well.
Okay.
And the Union Rescue folks, along with the Midnight Mission, along with the larger community, they comprise our numbers. And at any given point, we probably have about 100 active members of the Skid Row Running Club. So
That's amazing.
A lot more than the 3 or 4 when it started 8 years ago.
Wow.
Okay, I had no idea that it would evolve to this point.
What's so amazing is that these are people who, for whatever reason, whether it be alcohol or drugs, that they were living just to get high or just for another high, and it placed them, in a place where they couldn't function, into running over 26 miles?
26.2. And if you think that's impressive, we have a ultra marathon every September where we run the LA River,
How many miles is that?
54 miles.
Oh my God.
In one day?
We start out at 6 o'clock in the morning at the headwaters of the LA River in Canoga Park,
aggressive.
and we run to the Queen Mary.
Oh my God.
Okay,
That's aggressive.
and that's a major accomplishment.
Yeah, I'd be meeting you at the Queen Mary. I'd just say, okay, when you pull up, let me know. I'll be right here.
But and to be straight about this, are all of our runners able to conquer those distances? No. Okay, and that's not required. If all you can handle are the 5 to 7 mile runs during the week, that's fine. And if you're running a 12 or 13 minute mile pace or a 7 minute mile pace, it doesn't matter. Okay?
Okay, and and that's lovely. You just end up feeling like, what? No. So let's talk about this. You are doing such a wonderful job on the bench and off the bench. It's a rough job. It really is, and you are handling it like, well, God did appoint you, like a king that God has appointed. I'd like to know your perspective on the rise of methamphetamine use and its impact on the homeless and the criminal justice system.
You know, it used to be in Los Angeles that crack cocaine was the drug of choice for largely people on the street. Okay, It was cheap, it was accessible. With the introduction of methamphetamine, really within the last years. I mean, it's been around in the background, but its rise in popularity has been devastating. Okay, there are people, you know, and I know this from firsthand experience, being involved in the running club. There are people who can use crack cocaine for 20 years, and once you get them off of it, okay, they can sort of build their life back. Okay, it does not permanently disable a person. That is not true with methamphetamine. Methamphetamine changes the chemistry in a person's brain. Okay, if a person chronically uses methamphetamine, they ultimately or eventually are going to end up with methamphetamine-induced schizophrenia. And I have seen it, and I've seen some of our runners where, you know, they're right on the verge, their use is so heavy that you go, you know, if they continue to use, I can see the paranoia begin to creep in. I can see the delusions begin to creep in. And we've actually had to identify some of our runners who cannot go overseas with us because their schizophrenia is such that it's simply untenable given their unpredictable behavior, their ability to, you know, engage in behavior that is ultimately destructive and dangerous to them and others. We can't take them overseas.
Right.
And, you know.
So are they normal at some point and then it kicks in? I mean, from the use of the drug, I mean, does it mellow out ever?
No. I mean, you get to the point where you develop the schizophrenia, okay? There's no going back. And that's what is so damnable about that particular drug, is you look at a 25 or a 28-year-old or 35-year-old individual who is chronically using methamphetamine, you know, it's pointless to talk about, you know, a job, getting back into school. These things are off the table.
But I mean, what if they stop?
If they stop, the damage has been done. We get them in recovery and they stop. But the paranoia, the delusions, the hallucinations, they're there and with them for the rest of their lives. And so, you know, and what frustrates me, you know, it's, you know, we talk about what needs to be done to address homelessness in Los Angeles. Well, a significant part of that discussion needs to focus on how are we going to reduce and eliminate the use of methamphetamine use. Because until you do that, you're just going to have, you know, a pipeline of people who are going to be homeless. Yeah, it's not a pretty picture.
So methamphetamine is cheaper than crack
It is.
cocaine.
It is, and the high is better.
But you can recover from crack cocaine?
Crack cocaine does not rewire the brain the way methamphetamine does.
So it's a different chemical that they're using.
Well, I mean, essentially, you know, methamphetamine is, you know, it's a product of man-made chemicals. Okay, I mean, obviously, crack cocaine is a cocaine-based opiate. Okay, yeah.
Wait a minute, methamphetamine, isn't that a diet thing too? Do they put it in diet?
Well, an amphetamine,
oh,
okay, is has been traditionally used for diet purposes. Okay. I mean, methamphetamine is a stimulant, but it is, you cook methamphetamine, there is nothing natural in that. Okay? And it is extremely devastating to one's intellectual self.
Wow.
What are the ingredients that go into methamphetamine?
Well, I think, for those of us who, go get the Sudafed or the cold medicine, it's now much more regulated because that is one of the components. Okay?
Yes, Sudafed. I used to work at Kaiser. Was something that you could buy over the counter because it was great for your cold.
Correct.
And would unstop your nose. Actifed made you kind of sleepy, but the daytime Sudafed would still stop the runny nose, and you'd be okay to work and be awake. And now they don't sell that anymore.
No, and they've really gotten hip to the people who will go in and order just cases of this stuff. Because the people who order cases, they're just cooking meth at that point.
You mean of the Sudafed?
Right.
Okay.
Because
I thought they don't make it anymore at all.
No, they do.
Wow.
But that's one of the key ingredients. And there are some other chemicals that, I probably should have on the tip of my tongue, but don't. But, I mean, you watch the news in the evening, and invariably what will you see periodically? There was this house fire, and what were they doing in this house? They were cooking meth.
Right.
Okay? It's very
dangerous,
and it's being produced overseas. And so if you have no money, but you want a great return on your investment in the drug trade, meth is probably your best bet.
That's a shame.
Oh, it is. The toll that it is exacting on people's lives is something that I don't think the larger community fully grasp at this point.
I was going to say, because what really upsets me is the fact that I'm always into keep hope alive, and that when I hear that methamphetamine will eat your brain, and so there's no coming back from the schizophrenia.
We had one of our runners, okay, who former Marine, incredibly talented artist, bright young man, went to a whole host of recovery programs, some very expensive. Tragically, a year ago, he took his life. He was so frustrated with his inability to separate himself from meth. Okay? That he said, I'm not going to win this battle, and he took his life.
Well, with that being said, do we have? I guess it's still very disturbing, because what I'm hearing is, even with people who have gone through a drug rehabilitation program to stop taking
multiple
meth.
Drug rehabilitation programs. Now, not to be a complete downer, one of the encouraging things is the link between running and being able to suppress the urges to use drugs such as methamphetamine. The science is really, it's there, that if you engage in running, and it's funny, it's not the same with tennis or biking, but running seems to really draw out the dopamine in a person's brain in a way that other cardio activities do not. And what is interesting is there are a lot of drug programs now, largely on the East Coast, who, if you want to be a part of their recovery program, you must run.
It produces the endorphins in running.
It just floods the dopamine into your brain.
So just think, you can have an exercise that makes you feel great, makes you feel better, and makes you healthy, and you don't have to pay for it.
Right.
Now that really excites me.
So why isn't that more popular?
Okay.
Well, and the encouraging thing is, a lot of our runners, I don't want to share their names, but I can list name after name after name of individuals who have been serious meth addicts who, as running along with the 12-step program, along with the other support mechanisms that exist, they are able, if early enough, to distance themselves from that insidious drug.
What's early enough? How soon do you have to catch it?
It's different depending upon the usage history of any individual. But, I mean, if you're using meth regularly, you know, much more than a couple years, it's over.
Okay, so if you catch it with someone who has possibly been using 3 months, 1 month,
you're good to go. That's
we
a
can
real
run that out of them.
That's a real hopeful prospect at that point.
Okay, all right. So we're gonna put them on the mountain or put them on a treadmill. We're gonna put them somewhere and run it out.
You know, yeah.
Well, once again, it's amazing and it's fascinating. I like to, the topic, we select topics of the show, and for you have so many gold nuggets and treasures to talk about until the only topic I could come up with for you was marathon justice, because you sit and you are an acting judge and you know the law, and you see the hearts of people.
Tell that to the Court of Appeal.
Okay.
Our buddies.
Okay. And you are just a God's gift, fascinating individual.
But what I hope the viewers of your show understand, I'm really not any different than anybody else, except I am willing to carve out X number of hours each week to commit to this. You know, I'm not an exceptionally great runner, okay? My social skills, you know, lack certain aspects.
You run 26 miles.
Yeah, but
that's a great runner.
There's going to be 25,000 people in Los Angeles in 2 Sundays who are going to do the same thing.
Well, that's
okay?
amazing.
But out of those 25,000 people, you know, how many people say, okay, how can I use my running life to benefit the larger community? And for me, it's running. I hope that there are people who are watching this program because they, well, you know, I've got musical gifts to share with somebody. You know, someone else may say the people who are going into the juvenile halls and helping juveniles who are incarcerated learn how to express themselves through writing. Okay, there's so many different ways that people can help the larger community. You don't have to run 26.2 miles. You know, pick your poison.
You're awesome.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us on From the Halls of Justice, and we'll be back. Thank you so much.
Did I talk enough? Okay.
Wait a minute.